Alright class, so this is my explanation video for using Excel to graph this data. So here I've just got a data set that I downloaded from the internet. It's a titration, so I'm adding sodium hydroxide to an acid. So you can see that my pH starts really low, I've got acidic conditions, and as I add my sodium hydroxide, then pH is going to go up. So what we want to do is we're going to make a graph of this to show that data in a nice way. So what I want to start out by showing you is just some tips and tricks for using Excel, and then I'll show you how to actually make this graph. So the first thing I'm going to show you is here, if I put my cursor here right in between this column A and column B and I double click, then that's going to automatically adjust this size of this cell to show the full, what's fully their titrant volume. Another thing that I can do here is I can go to Format Cells, and then I can do what's called wrap the text. So here, Format Cells, there's some different tabs up here. If I want to wrap the text, what that's going to do is if I resize this, it's going to wrap the text around so that we will always see all of that, that cell. It'll just sort of resize based off of, how big, how big the cell is. So I think that looks good. Another thing that we can do is we can center everything. So if we want to just make everything look nice, up here I can center everything. This one up here just centers it up and down, so that's our raw data. I think it looks good, so let's go ahead and move on. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to actually make the graph. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this data here, and then if I go up here to Charts, I can click Scatter, and if I just do this marked scatter or smooth marked scatter, straight marked, they're all essentially the same. It's just sort of the way that they're going to sort of show how the data is presented. This one's just going to show data points. This one's going to smooth out the lines between those data points, and this one's going to draw straight lines between those data points. So let's go ahead and select this one. I think this is a good starting point. I'm going to bring that over here. So now we've got this picture, and this is a good starting point, right? We see our data. We've got, obviously this is going to be the titrant volume. This is going to be the pH, and it just automatically knew to do that because I selected that data. And now I want to make this look good. That's sort of the thing. The first thing, I'm just going to get rid of this. So if I click on things individually inside of this box, so I can click here, that selects this sort of plot area. If I click here, that selects this axis. If I click here, that's got the legend. And we don't really need that legend. It doesn't really make sense, doesn't help us. So I'm just going to click delete and get rid of that. So right away, this looks a lot better. Now things that I want to add. So I want to add, some things, make sure that this is got all the things that I want on it. So if I click on Format, I can see some different stuff. If I click on Chart Layout, now I've got more options here. So Chart Title, we're going to start with that. Title above Chart, I think that's a good place to put it. And so here I'm going to go ahead and type in, we'll call this the titration curve of phosphoric acid. So this is a triprotic acid, and we're seeing two of those equivalents there. So titration curve of phosphoric acid. We could add, with sodium hydroxide, but I think that's a good title. Now we want to do our axis titles. So right here, if I want to put a horizontal axis title below the axis, that should give me this little box here. I can double click in there, and then type in. So this would be the volume of 0.100 molar sodium hydroxide added. And then I feel like this is a little small, so I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. So we can click on that. We can go to Layout here to make it bigger, or actually Home, I guess, to make it bigger. So just click here. That's going to make it bigger. I can also just right-click on it. So if I right-click on it, I can edit text, exit. Let's see if I can do this. So right-click on it. Format axis title or format axis text would also work. So here I can change the font size. So if I want to make it a little smaller, I'll make it smaller. But I think 14, that looks like a good size, so we'll just leave it there. Nice big axis label there. So let's go back here and add the other axis label to the vertical axis. So I like this rotated title. It's just going to be, on this side here. And let's label this just pH, simple as that. And then if I want to make that bigger, again, there's a number of ways to do it. If I just go to Home here and make this bigger, 14, 14, that looks good. I'm going to make this whole graph bigger, and the way I'm going to do that is just by dragging this chart area. So this blue outline here, that's the whole chart. If I click in here, then I can move actually the things inside. So this plot area, I can move it. I don't really want to do that, so let's just go ahead and undo that. But I can move, make this whole chart bigger by selecting the blue outside part. So we're getting there. This looks pretty good. I've got my title, I've got my axis labels. So the next thing I want to do is get rid of these grid lines. So I don't think these grid lines look very good. So the easiest way that I found is actually just to click. If you click on one of the grid lines, then you can see that those are all selected, right? So if I click out here, or click on the whole chart, and then if I click right here on the grid line, then it selects those. And if I just click delete, then those will get rid of those grid lines. So I think that this looks better, a better picture. And this is pretty much it. I think that this is good to go. Next thing I might want to do is print this out. So if I just hit Control P, then I see my sort of preview here, and obviously it's getting cut off a little bit here, right? So that's no good, so let's cancel that. And once you've done one print option, then these lines, these blue lines will show up, and that's going to be my print area. So one thing I can do is, now that I have that, I can I can move this so that it's sort of fitting within that print area. So now when we hit Control P, this is what it will look like. But another thing we can do is we can change the layout. We can go to page setup, and we can make this into a landscape mode. So if we make it into landscape mode, then my blue lines are going to be more like this. And I'll put my chart right here, right next to my data. So then when we do Control P, this would be my printout, and I think that looks pretty good. So we would go ahead and print that, and that will be what we can turn in. All right, let me know if you have any other questions or you'd like to me to add anything to this video. Great.